Welcome to the Daily Quack. Today we are going to be talking about Uncle Scrooge #1, the classic tale by Carl Barks that set the stage for so many other amazing stories. So let's dive right into Only a Poor Old Man. The story begins like so many others with Scrooge and his money bin, diving around in it like a porpoise, burrowing through it like a gopher, and tossing it up and letting it hit him on the head. Scrooge explains to his nephew Donald that having so much money allows him to not have a care in the world, except of course for all the moths, rats, and spiders that are trying to eat all his money. They hear a commotion next door, and they realize that someone has bought the plot right next door to the money bin. Donald doesn't think this is a big deal, but of course Scrooge starts to panic. Donald goes down to see exactly what's happening at the construction site, and he finds none other than the notorious Beagle Boys. They've bought the empty plot next to the money bin, and they plan on robbing Scrooge blind. After a brief moment of panic, Scrooge gets his thoughts together, and he comes up with a plan. He decides the best thing he can do is sneak the money out of his money bin right under the Beagle Boys' noses. While the Beagle Boys' dump trucks arrive at the construction site, Scrooge slyly puts some money into the empty trucks, which are then filled with dirt and taken out to be dumped at the reservoir. Scrooge buys the reservoir, and the Beagles have done all the moving work for him. When the Beagle Boys finally get their building finished, they drill through the wall into the money bin and find nothing. Meanwhile, back at the reservoir, the ducks are booby-trapping the area, and Scrooge decides to start digging his cash out of the mud when he realizes that his great plan wasn't so great after all. He can't leave the money out to dry because it might be seen, and he can't leave it underwater as the bills would start to rot. And not only that, he's also missing his vitally important money swims. So while the ducks dredge up a small money island for Scrooge to have a dip, the Beagles are feeling despondent about their failure. Number 176831 heads out to the reservoir to do some fishing and spies Scrooge having his money swim. The Beagles hatch a new plan. This one involves buying all the land downstream from the reservoir and busting the dam so the money ends up naturally on their property. They try many different ways of destroying the dam, using a giant magnifying glass to burn it, strapping dynamite to fish, and sending in trained birds with napalm bombs. The scheme that finally works, though, is super termites. The termites make short work of the dam, and then in one of Barks' greatest pages, the dam bursts and the cash pours out. The Beagles celebrate their newfound wealth. Scrooge goes to congratulate them for outsmarting him and asks for one final money swim. The Beagles are so amazed by this that they all want to try it out and end up knocking themselves unconscious. The ducks get all the money back, and all is right with the world. The story ends the way it began, with Scrooge telling Donald about how much comfort his money brings him, and Donald responds with, "You may not know it yet, but your billions are a pain in the neck. You're only a poor old man." And how does Scrooge respond? By taking one more money swim, by diving around in it like a porpoise, burrowing through it like a gopher, and tossing it up and letting it hit him on the head. This is a fantastic first issue. Published in 1952, it's officially Dell 4-color number 386, but in reality it is Uncle Scrooge #1. So many Scroogeisms are begun here. We have the plot line, which Barks used so many times, of Scrooge sneaking his money out of the bin and hiding it somewhere else to foil the Beagle Boys, his love affair with each coin and bill in his hoard, and of course the Beagle Boys themselves. This wasn't their first appearance, but it was their first starring role. They would prove to be a thorn in Scrooge's side for quite some time. This book was my first experience with this story. This book has obviously been read so many times, and this is one of the prized books in my collection. That's all for today, and thank you very much for joining us on the Daily Quack.